I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being and is going to pay.
Now,
Where would you like to go?
I mean, wherever you want to go. Hey, where are we at?
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, you know, telling me they love me and, you know, just turn their back on you in a second.
The Diddy trial might not be dominating your TV screen like a courtroom drama, but don't get it twisted, the case is very real, and it's getting more chaotic by the day. While major networks are keeping things quiet, those who've been paying attention know there's a lot happening behind the scenes. From sealed testimonies to hush-hush hearings, it's clear there's a reason cameras aren't allowed in that courtroom. And now, thanks to Justin Bieber, we might finally understand why. According to sources close to the case, Justin has just dropped something major: leaked footage that's reportedly tied to his time around Diddy. And this isn't just another internet rumor or secondhand story. It's actual video evidence that's now made its way into the courtroom. Insiders say Diddy is furious, scrambling behind the scenes, and for good reason. The footage reportedly paints a damning picture of what was happening behind closed doors. And it's not a good look. In fact, legal experts believe that if this video holds up under scrutiny, it could trigger another wave of lawsuits or even lead to more criminal charges. What's wild is that Justin had been mostly silent throughout all of Diddy's scandals over the years. But now he seems ready to talk, and the timing couldn't be worse for the music mogul. People close to the situation are calling this a turning point in the trial. If Justin's footage checks out, this could be the beginning of the end for Diddy. And if that's the case, there's a lot more trouble on the horizon. Not just for him, but possibly for others who were part of his inner circle. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, in March 2024, things got very real for Sean Diddy Combs. Federal agents showed up at his homes, not one, but both of them, in Los Angeles and Miami. What happened next wasn't just a minor investigation. Homeland Security stormed in, came out with boxes full of electronics, hard drives, phones, and the internet lit up with one question. What were they hoping to find? And who else might be involved? Because here's the thing, this wasn't just about Diddy anymore. For years, whispers had followed him about the private parties, the controlled environments, the people who came in and out. But now, the speculation has turned into action. Agents believed that if Diddy had been documenting what really happened behind those closed doors, it wouldn't just be damaging, it could be criminal. And right in the middle of those swirling rumors stood one very familiar name: Justin Bieber.
Today, it's starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, you know, through all my, partners and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But you never really got my number, so.
Right, okay.
My number?
Yeah.
Tell you my number.
Yeah.
Now, to be clear, Justin hasn't been named as a victim, but that didn't stop the internet or insiders in the industry from wondering why his name kept coming up. He was around back then. He had close ties to Diddy. He spent time at those mansions. People started asking, what did Justin see? What does he know? And now, he's starting to talk. Fast forward to the trial. Day 2. It was already tense in the courtroom, with journalists and legal experts hanging on every word. But when Justin Bieber's name was brought up, the mood changed instantly. According to insiders who were in the room, Diddy went still. His usual calm, controlled demeanor cracked for a moment. His jaw locked, his hands clenched. And for the first time, it felt like the walls were starting to close in. Because not only had Justin's name come up, he had apparently shared new information. Something that backed Cassie's side of the story. Something that, if proven credible, could open Diddy up to another lawsuit, and maybe even more serious consequences down the line. security in the room reportedly got involved. There were whispers between Diddy's legal team. Even the judge took a pause as the courtroom took in what had just happened. Some reports say the tension in the room was so thick, you could feel it pressing against your chest. Diddy wasn't just shaken, he was rattled. Think about it. Justin Bieber, one of the biggest pop stars of a generation, just inserted himself into one of the most high-profile and controversial trials the entertainment world has seen in years. And Diddy? He's fighting for his name, his legacy, and his freedom. And now, someone from his past who saw it all unfold is speaking up. This isn't just about celebrity drama. It's about what happens when the truth starts leaking from behind the mansion gates. And if what Justin's revealed is just the beginning, Diddy might have a much bigger problem on his hands than he ever expected. And all of this was bound to come out sooner than later. He burst onto the scene as a kid with a voice that stopped the internet. Now 31, he's a global superstar with decades in the spotlight and a complicated history of mentors and industry ties. One of the biggest names to guide him early on, Usher, the R&B legend who helped shape Bieber's sound and introduced him to the big leagues. And tied to that same circle was another heavyweight in the music game, Sean Diddy Combs. Back then, Diddy was known for his glitz, his money, his A-list lifestyle. But behind all the glam, there was always a whisper. Those exclusive parties, the blurred lines, and the names of young artists getting pulled into his orbit. Bieber was one of them. Photos of them hanging out surfaced over the years, and Diddy himself never hid the fact that he had close ties with rising stars. But here's where the story takes a turn. Over the last year, the tone around Diddy has shifted hard. Gone are the playful stories and brag-filled interviews. Now, we're talking serious accusations, multiple lawsuits, graphic allegations, words like assault, coercion, and trafficking. These are the charges that turned the media mogul into the center of a federal case. And the courtroom isn't even televised. That's how sensitive this is. So how does Justin fit into all this? Well, for a while, people speculated. Was he just another young star swept up in Diddy's fast-paced lifestyle, or was there more to the story? The internet asked, over and over again, if Justin had seen things he wasn't supposed to, if he'd experienced anything he wasn't ready to talk about. And now, with the first week of the trial wrapping up, Justin's team is finally saying something. According to reports, reps for Bieber told TMZ that he himself was not harmed by Diddy, but they made one thing very clear. There are people who were. That one line? It speaks volumes. Because while Justin might not be naming names or revealing everything he saw, the fact that his team is speaking at all, during the most high-profile moment of Combs' legal downfall, means something. He's distancing himself. He's watching closely, and he may know a lot more than he's letting on. I mean, let's talk about the timing, because there's no way Justin Bieber's team randomly chose this week to speak up. Nope. This wasn't a coincidence. This was calculated. Here's why. One of the biggest questions floating around this entire Diddy case is, who else is involved? We already know the parties weren't your average Hollywood mixers. They were infamous, wild, and tightly controlled. And behind closed doors, insiders called them freak-offs, days-long events that only a select few were ever invited to. The kind of gatherings that, according to allegations, may have crossed legal and moral lines. And among the names whispered for years, Justin Bieber. People have been asking about his connection to Combs for a long time. Remember that old video when Bieber was just a kid, maybe 15, and Diddy was telling the world he was going to hang out with him for a couple of days? That clip resurfaced when the lawsuits started rolling in. It was creepy then. It's haunting now. That moment, whether people realized it or not, was the start of the speculation.
When is that coming, that Lamborghini? We talked about this last time.
He had the Lamborghini for a day or two, and he had access to the house, and he knows better than to be talking about the things that he does with Big Brother Puff on national television.
But for years, silence. And it's not like he never tried speaking about it. He was just very subtle in doing so. One person wrote on X, "Justin Bieber has been exposing a lot of darkness over the years." In his Yummy video, Justin Bieber showed his face on a plate, which indicates he is a victim of monsters like Diddy and Geo4Bice. Geo4Bice has uploaded multiple pictures of plates with tied up or victims, who these creeps consider models. Knowing that Geo is friends with Midland Agency co-founders Rachel Chandler, who also connects to Diddy, and Walter Pierce, good reason to suspect that he also abused Bieber as well, alongside Rachel and her other numerous associates. But now he's done. Right after the first week of courtroom drama wraps, when headlines are filled with updates about witnesses, and we're about to hear from Don Richard, who was right there during the height of Bad Boy's reign. That's when Bieber's team finally breaks their silence. It's not random. It's a message. See, with this trial expected to stretch on for months, prosecutors need more than just emotional testimony from former girlfriends. They want to show a pattern. And the most powerful pattern is when people outside of romantic involvement start speaking up. People who don't owe Diddy anything. People who simply saw what went down. That's where Justin's statement lands like a bombshell. Because while he doesn't say he was harmed, he does confirm others were. That alone gives prosecutors ammo. It gives the public clarity. And let's be real, it also protects Justin. By speaking now, he's distancing himself and drawing a line. I'm not a victim, but I believe some people are. That helps silence the "will he testify" speculation. It sets a boundary before his name gets dragged in any deeper. Let's not ignore what this really is. Damage control, yes, but also a strategic move. Bieber, like most celebs in this ecosystem, wants nothing to do with the courtroom. But the fact that he even addressed it tells you there's more behind the curtain than anyone's letting on. And the government? You better believe they're taking notes. Now here's where it gets even messier. Justin Bieber is walking a tightrope. He finally said something. But let's be real, he didn't say much. And that silence, it's making people ask even more questions. On May 15th, his rep released a carefully worded statement. Although Justin is not among Sean Combs' victims, there are individuals who were genuinely harmed by him. Shifting focus away from this reality detracts from the justice these victims rightfully deserve. Sounds supportive, right? But also pretty vague. It's like Justin's trying to stand in solidarity without actually saying anything that could pull him deeper into the Diddy storm. And that's exactly what's raising eyebrows, because if he truly had nothing to hide, wouldn't it be easier to speak freely? Unless, and this is what fans and insiders are whispering, there's something else going on. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's pressure. Or maybe, just maybe, there's some kind of leverage Diddy still has over him. Blackmail? Old footage? Texts? In this world, nothing's off the table. Let's not forget, Justin's been through a lot. And lately, his behavior has been sending out red flags. Back in March, he posted a video of himself strumming a guitar and singing. Nothing unusual. But the caption? I hate myself sometimes. That shook people. It wasn't just sad. It sounded like a cry for help. And in the middle of this Diddy chaos, it hit differently. So when people say Justin's statement was just enough, they're not wrong. It was just enough to protect himself legally. Just enough to show sympathy without crossing any lines. But you can feel it. The hesitation. He didn't clearly distance himself. He didn't say, I never saw anything. He didn't say, Diddy's a liar. He said the bare minimum. Which makes you wonder, what is he really afraid of? Now, the reason why all of this is getting so insane is because stuff is coming out in the courtroom now. Right after the first court break, that post blew up like wildfire. People were gathering in tight circles all over the courthouse corridors, swiping through their phones like it was breaking news on every screen. A court officer even had to step in, telling everyone to shut off their devices before going back inside. Legal aides were scrambling to print out screenshots for their lawyers, and even a few jurors looked visibly puzzled by all the buzz in the air. You could tell something huge had just dropped. The post itself, it featured a raw, old-school photo. Bieber and Cassie at some music gig years ago, both flashing smiles. But if you really looked at Cassie's eyes, there was a whole other story. Bieber's caption hit different. He said he'd always admired Cassie's resilience and was sorry for not speaking up sooner. For Diddy, this was the worst timing imaginable. Bieber's 270 million followers caught the post within minutes, and news outlets were already firing off headlines. This was no longer just entertainment chatter. This was a huge star with real weight throwing down his perspective in the middle of a live trial. And while many say his speaking up wasn't enough, there's still some who think even this much is enough. Lately, there's been a lot of noise online about Justin's mental state. And for good reason. Fans started noticing he wasn't himself. He looked worn down, jittery, distant. There were moments caught on camera where he seemed totally out of it, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. People were whispering about possible drug use again. His face looked tired, his eyes heavy. And then came the cryptic posts on Instagram, blurry images, vague captions, Bible verses, and lyrics about pain and betrayal. None of it felt random. At first, it just looked like another celebrity spiral. But then came the conversations behind the scenes. The timing wasn't lost on anyone. This all started bubbling back up right when the Diddy allegations resurfaced. And suddenly, it started making sense. People close to the situation began saying it straight. Justin was reliving a trauma he never fully processed. What if he wasn't just stressed? What if he was triggered? What if all those memories, the ones he tried to bury years ago, were crashing back down on him? The rumors about Diddy, the lawsuits, the photos, the timelines, it all lined up with things Justin had experienced or witnessed as a teenager in that industry bubble. He'd always hinted at dark things behind the scenes, but now the dots were connecting. That's why people think the relapse signs weren't random. They were a response, a coping mechanism, maybe even a cry for help. For someone who spent most of his life being told to stay quiet and play nice, it looked like everything inside him had reached a breaking point. And instead of speaking publicly right away, his body and his habits spoke first. Now, even if his statement isn't enough, there's still a pretty strong case built against Puff. This week, all eyes have been on Ventura, the prosecution's key witness and someone who dated Diddy from around 2007 to 2018. She's currently more than 8 months pregnant, but still took the stand for 4 intense days, laying out disturbing details about what she says happened during their relationship. According to her testimony, things weren't just toxic, they were traumatic. She described years of alleged emotional and physical abuse and said that even after they broke up, Diddy her in 2018. One of the most shocking parts of her testimony, she talked about something she called freak-offs. These were drug-fueled parties that she said Diddy would plan and control, where he'd have her sleep with male escorts while he watched, sometimes for days at a time in different states, and often with cameras rolling. She said these experiences would leave her drained for days. And worse, she felt stuck, because Diddy allegedly threatened to use those videos against her if she ever tried to walk away. "I just did whatever would keep him from exploding," she told the court. She also said she always had to take drugs, ones he gave her, just to feel numb and get through it. According to Ventura, dissociating was the only way she could mentally survive those moments. The prosecution didn't hold back. They painted Diddy as someone who had total control over Cassie's life. From the way she dressed to where she lived, from her career decisions to who was brought in for the so-called freak-offs. Prosecutors said he called every shot. And when it came to those freak-offs, Ventura said she had no real say. Diddy allegedly dictated what would happen and who would be involved. Cassie told the court that she felt this deep sense of responsibility to keep him happy. Even when everything inside her was falling apart, she described feeling horrible, humiliated, and worthless after those encounters, but saying no wasn't really an option. She said she was terrified of what might happen if she did. Make the wrong face, and the next thing I knew, I would get hit in the face, she said. At one point during the trial, the jury was shown the now infamous security footage from a hotel hallway in 2016, where Diddy is clearly seen attacking her. She also shared that Diddy's staff would sometimes take away her belongings when he was angry, almost like a punishment. And in one of the most disturbing moments of her testimony, she said that during some of those freak-offs, Diddy, or one of the escorts, would urinate on her because he asked for it. Throughout her time on the stand, Cassie was visibly emotional. She teared up several times, quietly wiping her face with a tissue. She also often rested her hand on her pregnant belly, gently rubbing it, a small, tender gesture in the middle of something so dark. But one of the hardest moments came when she talked about trying to heal. She broke down while describing her time in rehab and trauma therapy after the relationship ended. She admitted that at one point, things got so heavy, she had thoughts of ending her life. On Thursday, things took a sharp turn as Diddy's legal team began cross-examining Cassie. Their strategy was clear: try to chip away at her credibility and paint her as someone who was fully on board with everything she says she was forced into. The defense pulled out dozens of texts and emails from their relationship, some of them explicit. In one message, Cassie had written, "I'm always ready to freak off." And in another, "I love our freak-offs when we both want it." But Cassie didn't flinch. She told the court those were just words at that point. Survival language. Things she said to keep the peace, avoid punishment, or convince herself it wasn't as bad as it felt. The topic of drug use came up too. Cassie acknowledged that both she and Diddy struggled with opiate addiction at different points, and she confirmed they frequently used drugs like ecstasy and ketamine. While she spoke, Diddy watched her closely, whispering to his attorneys, scribbling notes, but Cassie never looked back at him. At one point, the defense even tried to suggest that Diddy was going through opiate withdrawals around the time of that 2016 hotel hallway assault, as if that might somehow explain, or excuse, what was caught on tape. On Friday, Cassie was back on the stand for more cross-examination. Again, the defense leaned hard into the narrative that she was a loving, willing partner, not a victim. But when her testimony wrapped late that afternoon, it was her words through her lawyer that left the biggest impact. In a statement shared by her attorney, Douglas Wigdor, Cassie said the week had been extremely challenging, but also remarkably empowering and healing. She went on to say, "I hope that my testimony has given strength and a voice to other survivors, and can help others who have suffered to speak up and also heal from abuse and fear. For me, the more I heal, the more I can remember. And the more I can remember, the more I will never forget." It wasn't just a mic drop moment. It was a message. Cassie didn't just survive the week. She reclaimed her story, and she wants the same for Justin, too. So, what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you liked this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.